Tonight, I'm welcoming Miss Diane Richardson. She's an actress based in Appleton, Wisconsin. How are you, Diane?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Yes, everything is okay so far. Thank you very much for joining us in our
Good. You're welcome.
discussion. And I want to ask you about your interest in acting. Can you tell us briefly about it?
Yes, I've been interested in acting since I was a little girl when I used to play dress up in our house
Mhm.
and pretend I was different people. Um, I loved to captivate an audience, which then was my parents. Um, I then I began to learn the piano, so I played in auditions and for my instructor and I played at the university a few times. From there, I also began to sing, and I sang as a solo artist and in groups, and of course traveled. So my life kind of started on a stage in that regard. I was not in a play in grade school. As I went into high school, I was coaxed to try out for a play, and I was afraid to even try that. I didn't want to do that because I thought I'd be too nervous. So they talked me into it. I tried out and I got the lead of the play. That was my freshman year. And I really enjoyed it. I was shocked, but I really enjoyed it. From there, I went on, I wanted to be a professional actress after high school. And my dream was shot down by a particular person saying that there was no money in it and it wasn't a career to go into. So I listened to him, and as much as disappointed as I was, and I became a teacher. I taught for 23 years in special education. The classroom became my stage, all of my students, and I would be able to, act out stories and, just create plays with the kids and do things like that. From there, while I was teaching, I went into community theater and I got some prominent roles and I kind of did that on the side. And then the next phase of my acting was I heard of an audition on the radio when I was 55 years old. And I decided to drive to Green Bay, Wisconsin and try out with the audition. I received a call back the next day and I trained in Chicago for 9 months. I graduated and I've been acting professionally ever since. How's
Yes,
that?
excellent. And here on the Internet Movie Database, they are mentioning a few of your films. Is it like updated because the first film dated like 2018, or did you do some movies before that?
I was in movies before that. I began in indie films, college films in Chicago because that's where I trained. So I drove the 3 hours, go to 5 minute audition, drive home. I did that a lot and I started getting into films. I started getting actual, larger roles. And so I was in a few films in about 3 different colleges right in downtown Chicago. And following that, I was in 2 films right in my city here in Appleton. One was a local filmmaker, and the other film was a Hollywood crew that came in and worked at our university. And so I played an extra in both those films. Well, actually, the first film, I was a speed dater in a dating scene in a coffee shop. So that was fun. And so those were the beginning of my films. I continued to get smaller roles, and then my roles started increasing into bigger roles. And so that's kind of where my adventure has led me to now. I will be in a waitress in Honest to God. We are on hold with filming for that right now, unfortunately, with the pandemic. And I'm also on hold for a music video, which I have one of the leads in. For a Christian singer, and I was in her last video. And then I'm also on hold for another film. We'll be doing the fundraising for that, it's about an hour drive from here, a Wisconsin filmmaker. He lived out in Brooklyn, I believe, New York. So he moved all the way to Wisconsin from New York a couple years ago. He's an award-winning actor, and this is his first film. So I'm really looking forward to being able to film with him. So that's where things are now.
Oh, excellent. And I see also that in your short year you do some dancing.
I do. I am a ballroom dancer. I started that just shortly after I started acting professionally. I was invited to a guest party. I always thought ballroom dancers were kind of strange and I didn't really have an interest, but I always loved dancing. So I went to the guest party and I tried it out, fell in love with it right there. I started taking lessons and I just completed my 7th year of ballroom dancing. I've danced in about 4 states, um, performing 3 different routines. And I can do almost every ballroom dance now, and I love it. It's
Yeah.
great. And I even danced through my concussion. I had a very bad concussion a few years ago, and I just kept dancing. The doctor said I could, so I did. So,
What happened? It was a boxing film, no? It was,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. You'd think. I filmed and I danced through the concussion, so I really worked my brain. I believe that those things brought my thinking back to the level that to supposedly normal level. Uh, it was a very difficult time for me, and physically, they said that it helped my back and my neck quite a bit. So I highly recommend
mm,
to keep going, of course, on the advice of your doctor.
mm.
But no boxing film.
Yes. Tell me, does Honest to God is a film with like religious content, Christian content, or it's your usual drama?
That is called a faith-based, not necessarily Christian per se, but faith-based, having a God and believing in a greater power.
Yeah.
It's a true, well, it's a true to life story. Um, the director wrote it, and he will be directing it, obviously. And it kind of relates to an incident that happened in his life.
Mhm.
It's a very moving story, but the best part of his movies are they have a bit of humor in, so they lighten the subject up. And it's very entertaining. So it really opens up to a lot of different audiences.
Yes, because I during my viewing of many American films, indie studio films, there are very few films that have this religious line, And I remember maybe more than 10 years ago in Cairo Festival, we invited Sari Kirkland, if you remember her. She like a veteran actress, she's been on a lot of films. She's still acting like that. It was a film by an independent filmmaker, uh, and his name was Jizu Garcia, And the film, has a very had a very positive messages about very spiritual messages, let's say in general. Okay, but what I see is very few films like that. Why do you think, huh? There are very few films like that.
I believe the reason there are so very few films like that are faith-based or have a religious message are because we live in a world that's not a God world. It's a troubled world, and things progress in that direction, unfortunately. So I believe that the majority of films, therefore, are in that regard, in regard to the inappropriate language, inappropriate behaviors, just going against, morals that some of us strongly believe in. Um, I guess also it's a world that doesn't always have a lot of hope. They're not as much open-minded and in really believing, because it's all about faith. It's not just believing in a higher power or God, but it's the faith that things can get better. The faith that you can plant a seed in somebody with your happiness and joy, and they look at you and they wonder, you know, where's that coming from? And so I believe the few films that are out there are pushing forth that message, and those films are actually increasing. There's more and more in the box offices here. And I think it's because in all these times, especially now with this pandemic, there's more and more people really reaching out, or more people that are lost and trying to find some direction. So I think that that's the situation right now. And we are just in hopes. I choose faith-based, or I choose family film because of those reasons, so that I would like to shine my light to anyone that sees me on screen and just sees that the joy inside of me.
Yes. Speaking of the pandemic and Corona, how did you receive the first pieces of news about it, and and did it impact had an impact on, you know, the community around you?
I first heard about the pandemic, I believe, in February, early March. It was shocking. A lot of people were starting to think that it was just the flu, and it didn't seem like just the flu to me. So I started taking precautions quite early. I started somewhat quarantining. I started wearing a mask indoors. And it's interesting because that's the way it is now. More and more places are requiring masks to be worn indoors because of our numbers going up. My life somewhat came to a standstill because I ballroom dance, that discontinued. I'm an actress, that discontinued. And I'm also an antique dealer, which I didn't mention. And that came to a standstill because all the antique malls and all the stores had closed. So I was living a new life. I wasn't familiar with for many years because I'm a very social person. And so, and as the numbers increased, it became more and more difficult for me. But because of my strong faith, and because I'm a very active person, and I choose to do other things, to give myself joy, I was able to pretty much defeat the depression and the negative thoughts that were coming into my head, because it's bringing a lot of mental health issues for people because they're having trouble coping, whatever their situation is. I'm on my own. I don't have children. I don't have a husband, significant other. I have no dog. So it was a challenge for me. But I'm a big gardener. So as the weather got nicer, I got out there and got my fingers in the dirt, and I planted, and I, grew grass in bare areas. And I've just kept going ever since. Unfortunately, the pandemic has gotten bigger and bigger here in the United States. New York used to be, they used to have the most, but their numbers have come way down. They had mandatory masking. And unfortunately, our state is increasing. We've never really plateaued. We keep going up. And I believe the reason for that is there's just a lot of people that still aren't taking this very seriously. They're not choosing to wear masks indoors. They're not choosing to distance. They're having parties. They're gathering in close numbers, and they're not considering this to be something that's dangerous. Unfortunately, and I hope that more people in our country get more serious about the situation, so that we don't have to see the number of people suffer and die from this horrific pandemic.
Yes, I hope so, because it seems like it's very contagious. People can catch it very easily. Which is very problematic. But let me ask you about film festival or theater festival. Are there any like important events in Wisconsin? But were canceled as well this year.
Yes, all the festivals were canceled. We usually have a March festival right here in Appleton
Uh-huh.
called the Wildwood Festival. and that brings in filmmakers from all over the world.
Yeah.
It is, as well as our small filmmakers in the area and our actors in the area. So it's very popular. Unfortunately, that did not happen.
Mhm.
Um, there's a large one that I really wanted to try to be able to go to this year, which is the International Christian Film Festival, which they have down in Florida, and that canceled. So they did have that one online, so I was able to, you know, see some of the speakers and just feel some type of involvement. But uh, a lot of those are not happening because of the pandemic. So what I'm doing in the meantime, because I don't have all of that in my life, is I've been taking acting classes since March. So I've
Ah,
been on group Zooms. This is my fourth Zoom class. I'm just finished a one-on-one with a pretty prolific actor in the United States, Jen Gotson Chandler.
uh-huh.
And she's an outstanding coach. So I guess that's how I'm filling my time.
Very good. So it's a good solution, you know. And so when things come back, you know, to normal, you know, we can all go back to our activities, you know.
Definitely. I forgot to mention,
Yes.
yes, I do travel. I do travel for my acting. I have been to 8 states.
Hmm.
Um, I drive, or I did fly for one trip. Because I'm a newer actress within the last 7 years, I've flown on my own dime. I've paid for my own gas and my own lodging in all situations because I really believe in what I do. I have a passion
Yes.
for my new life and my new career. And so I just want to show people as well that, you know, you really need to invest your money, your time, and just your full self if you really love what you do. And therefore, because of that, I'm beginning to reap the benefits of my efforts and my love.
Of course.
So
And so I wish you the best of luck, you know, and hope to see your upcoming films very soon and more theatrical presentation and more inspiration as well for your students and your loved ones. And I want to thank you very much for coming online for this discussion. And next time, I hope to see some of your new films being released soon.
definitely. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the interview. I wish all of your people there and you and your family the very best and the greatest of health. And, you know, best wishes as well on your success in the film industry and as an editor for the magazine. You've done so much in your life. And again, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Take care.